Stop everything. If you thought debate was predictable, think again. Tonight we're diving headfirst into the most explosive, no-filter showdown transgender athletes in sports. Fairness, inclusion, the very essence of competition. We're tearing the rulebook apart and getting straight to the heart of it. In one corner, Alex Inclusa.
Every athlete deserves a place to compete.
In the other, Taylor Fairwin.
Rules exist for a reason. Fairness isn't hate, it's the foundation of sport.
And in the middle, no emotion, no politics. Just pure logic. Judge AI. 4 rounds. 100 points per round. 1 winner. No holding back. Round 1. Should transgender athletes be allowed to compete in sports according to their gender identity?
Their gender identity doesn't make them less worthy of respect. Look, the way I see it, sports should be for everyone, right? It's about feeling like you belong, showing respect, and getting a fair shot. Transgender athletes? They're people who just want the same chance as anyone else to play. Saying no, just because they're trans, feels wrong. It feels like we're finding a reason to keep them out, even if we dress it up as fairness.
Hold on a second, Alex. Nobody's trying to just exclude people. This is genuinely about fairness and competition. I mean, there are undeniable biological differences between guys and girls. Things like how dense their bones are, how much muscle they can build. Even their lung power, those aren't things that just vanish when someone transitions. Going through male puberty gives you a natural advantage, and that sticks around even with hormones.
But that's where the science comes in, Taylor. Hormone therapy does make a difference. It lowers testosterone, which is a big factor. Groups like the Olympics have actually looked at this and set rules, like keeping testosterone below a certain level for a good amount of time before competing. It's not just some made-up number, it's based on research trying to level the playing field. If we're serious about fairness, shouldn't we look at that instead of just using it as a reason to say no?
Yeah, but those rules don't cover everything, do they? I mean, you can lower testosterone, but you can't shrink bone structure or change the muscle memory someone's built up over years. It feels like we're focusing on one part of the picture and ignoring the rest. And what about the cisgender women who've trained their whole lives? Are we just going to overlook the potential disadvantage they face?
All right, let's pause there for a moment. Both of you are coming from understandable positions, but let's try to keep the focus on the core of the issue and be mindful of how we frame our points. For round 1, the scores are Alex Inclusa, 85, Taylor Fairwin, 90.
Round 2. Does science support the inclusion of transgender athletes in sports?
Definitely. There are studies showing that when transgender women go on hormone therapy, they do lose significant muscle mass and strength. I remember reading one from 2021 in the British Journal of Sports Medicine that found after about 2 years, any initial advantages become pretty minimal. The rules that organizations like the IOC have put in place, that testosterone level under 10 for at least a year, that's not pulled out of thin air. It's based on trying to understand what the science says about when things get closer to a level playing field. If we're really about being fair, we need to look at this evidence, not just rely on assumptions or, frankly, fear.
But Alex, you can't just pick and choose the studies you like. There's other research out there too. I saw something in the Journal of Medical Ethics talking about how things like bone density and even height advantages that come with male puberty, those don't just disappear with hormones. That initial period has a lasting effect on the body. And the IOC's 10 nanomoles per liter rule? Some scientists argue that doesn't really address those lasting advantages fully. If we're going to talk science, we need to look at the whole picture, not just the bits that support one side. Fairness means acknowledging all the scientific evidence, even the stuff that's not so convenient.
Okay, but it's not like every transgender woman is some giant with superhuman strength. There's a huge range of body types and athletic abilities within the transgender community, just like in the cisgender community. We need to think about creating a system that can work for most people, not just build walls based on worst-case scenarios or these exaggerated ideas.
It's not exaggeration, Alex. It's about being realistic about biology. And it's not about fear. It's about protecting the integrity of women's sports. These spaces were created specifically to give women a fair chance to compete, and if we don't have clear guidelines, we risk undermining all of that progress.
All right, let's take a breath and remember to engage with each other's points directly and respectfully. For round 2, the scores are Alex Inclusa, 88, Taylor Fairwin, 92.
Round 3. What are the ethical and social consequences of including or excluding transgender athletes in sports?
Think about the message exclusion sends, Taylor. It basically tells transgender kids and adults, you don't belong here. And that goes way beyond just sports. It affects their mental health, their sense of self-worth, their feeling of being respected as part of society. We've seen this play out before, haven't we? Using fairness as a reason to keep groups out: Black athletes, women in certain sports, LGBTQ plus people in general. History hasn't exactly looked kindly on those decisions. This isn't just about who wins or loses a game. It's about what kind of society we want to build.
But Alex, the social consequences of inclusion without clear science-backed rules can be just as damaging. Look at what happened in Connecticut with those two transgender sprinters who consistently outperformed cisgender girls. Those girls felt like all their hard work was pointless. That doesn't feel like fairness or justice to them. We can't just brush aside the concerns of cisgender women in the name of inclusivity. Women's sports were fought for to create equal opportunities. Are we really saying that those spaces should now be open in a way that could potentially undo that progress?
But you're focusing on a few specific examples, Taylor. We need to look at the broader impact. If we start drawing these rigid lines and excluding people based on who they are, where does it stop? What are the long-term effects on transgender youth who are already facing so much discrimination?
And what are the long-term effects on young cisgender girls who might feel discouraged from even trying if they feel like they can't compete fairly? It's a balancing act, and pretending there are no potential downsides to full inclusion without careful consideration isn't helpful.
All right, let's take a breath. And remember to consider the multifaceted nature of these ethical and social implications. For round 3, the scores are Alex Inclusa, 90. Taylor Fairwin, 87.
Round 4. What solutions or compromises can ensure fairness and inclusion in sports?
My take is, we need to look at each athlete individually. We can have a system that evaluates things like hormone levels, specific physical characteristics relevant to the sport, and maybe even have different standards for different sports. We also desperately need more research to really understand the impact of transitioning on athletic performance. And honestly, the most important thing is to keep talking. Athletes, scientists, policymakers all need to be part of this conversation. It shouldn't be an either-or situation. We should be able to find ways to be both fair and inclusive.
Alex, that sounds good in theory, but practically, how would that work? It feels like it would be really complicated and potentially open to bias. My suggestion would be to seriously consider an open category for all athletes, regardless of gender identity. That way, transgender athletes have a place to compete without directly impacting women's sports. We also need much clearer and stricter rules about hormone levels and maybe longer periods of transition before someone can compete in a specific category.
But an open category, Taylor, doesn't that just create a separate but not equal situation? It feels like we're still othering transgender athletes instead of truly integrating them.
This isn't about shutting anyone out. It's about trying to create a system where everyone has a fair chance within their chosen category. But is integration at the cost of competitive fairness actually progress, Alex? It feels more like it could lead to frustration and ultimately undermine the very principles that sports are built on.
All right, let's bring this to a close. Both of you have offered potential pathways forward, highlighting the complexities of finding a balance. For round 4, the scores are Alex Inclusa, 92. Taylor Fairwin, 89. After 4 rounds of thoughtful and, at times, challenging discussion, the final scores are Alex Inclusa, 355, Taylor Fairwin, 358.